How we doing? Oh, come on. Let's try that again. How we doing? This is gonna be a pretty fun evening. I was just hanging out with the cast backstage. They're all drunk. Very excited to be here. But thank you all. Thanks for being with us tonight. And without further ado, how about we introduce some of the most famous members, the most famous residents of Shondaland. We will start, by the way, we're going to start with a gentleman who's going to have to leave a little bit early because he has another gig. He's got a little show on Broadway, so we're going to introduce him first. Ladies and gentlemen, Conrad Ricamora. Oliver Hampton, for those of you not familiar, on How to Get Away with Murder. Most recently, though, he's playing Mary's husband on Broadway. I should probably also mention Tony nominated as well. Next up, Mr. James Pickens Jr. AKA Richard Weber. Bellamy Young. Mellie Grant, Scandal. President Grant. I told you they'd been drinking. I told you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scott Foley. Jake Ballard, Scandal.
Yep.
Henry Burton, Grey's Anatomy. Shonda's been so good to Scott Foley, he actually moved into her neighborhood. True story.
What do you want?
No. Betsy Beers.
That's it. Well done.
Creative partner, Shondaland.
Yes.
And last, but certainly most, ladies and gentlemen, the founder and CEO of Shondaland, Miss Shonda Rhimes. This is going to be fun. Well, let's just start. Let's get the origin story here for folks who aren't familiar with how all of this started. You're a writer. You've done Dorothy Dandridge on HBO. You've done Princess Diaries too. You'd written some stuff, and then all of a sudden you decide.
Don't forget Crossroads, starring
yes,
Britney Spears.
Sorry.
Don't forget
Crossroads as well. So how did that turn into this?
Oh my gosh. So, origin, I became a mom. And when you become a mom, you realize that you never get to leave the house again. And so I would be lying awake with this baby on my chest, watching all of this television and realizing that, oh my God, this is where it felt like all of the character development was happening. All the really fun storytelling was happening. And so I wanted to do TV. And I told my agents I wanted to do TV, and they were not excited for me. Because back then, TV was not TV, I guess. And they passed me over to another agent, who is still my agent today, lucky him.
Yeah.
And they sent me to meet Betsy Beers. And Betsy was working.
That's me.
The Betsy Beers. Betsy was working at a production company, and they'd made big movies too, so neither one of us had made television before.
Yeah. No.
But we made Grey's Anatomy. We sort of pitched one show, and it was a war correspondent
show, yeah.
And it didn't go. And then the next season, we sort of said, well, what does Bob Iger want to see? And everybody was like, Bob's looking for a medical show. And I was like, well, then we're writing a medical show.
And I was like, I hate medical shows.
She was.
Because I don't understand what anybody's ever doing on medical shows. They're all running around and screaming stat and pressing chests and stuff. And I was always confused, and you said,
I said, well, no, we're going to tell it through the point of view of interns because they don't know what they're doing either.
they don't know what they're doing either.
Yeah.
I was in.
And that's it.
And
we'd never made a television show before. Grey's was our first pilot that we made,
Yep.
and our first series that we made.
Yep.
And I don't know what we expected, but I don't think that we expected this.
No, we were barely hanging on to keep going,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
When did you realize that Grey's Anatomy was what it's become? I mean, we're talking 22 seasons now. When did you realize that it had become not just a hit TV show, but really sort of a part of the fabric of the country?
I feel like for me, it was when I started being able to like hear people talk about the show in grocery stores. Like I'd be somewhere and somebody on an aisle over would be saying like, pick me, choose me. And I was like, what's happening? It was that. It really was. And that was startling, I think.
And for me, it was probably similar, but it was the music. Because I would walk into a restaurant and you'd hear How to Save a Life, and then you'd
Over
hear
and over.
Chasing Cars over and over again, to the point where actually Alex Potsovis, who's our amazing music supervisor and a really good friend, we would go out to dinner and we would pay the guys at the front to change songs because we were like, oh, I can't listen to this again. But we loved the song. It just, we'd heard it a few times. So, yeah.
And then, of course, Grey's Anatomy then leads to private practice.
Yep.
How did that come to be?
Well, we got approached. People from the network showed up one day with, champagne and stuff, which
Is how we knew we were doing good.
Real, exactly. And it also usually means they're greasing some wheels.
Yeah.
Which lovely way to grease wheels, by the way, way better than grease. So basically, they came in and they said, how about thinking about doing a spinoff? And we both went,
Okay. Yeah.
And then I think we both sort of realized that maybe what they were talking about was one of those spinoffs where it would be like,
Grey's Anatomy Chicago.
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy Las Vegas.
and Meredith Hay. Or something along those
Yeah.
lines.
And we just weren't interested in replicating the world that we'd already created in any way. I don't think we only make shows we want to watch, and we weren't excited about that. So we began to think of it in a very different way. Like, who could we take from our show and spin off into another show?
What I enjoy about, and I just met you, I've known Shonda for a few years, you guys have worked together for so long, you can finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Or we talk in unison like we just did. Yeah. It's kind of creepy.
Has the dynamic been like that from the beginning? Like, was it like instantly you guys knew you would click and make all this magic, or?
We definitely knew we clicked right away,
We
but the
did.
dynamic wasn't like this. I was really, really shy, and Betsy did all the talking.
Can you tell?
But it's sort of evolved now.
Yeah, it's a great working relationship.
It really is. I feel incredibly lucky that she walked in that door one day, because it was one of those things where you were really different, and at the same point you were so much the same, like in terms of the way our brains work and the things we really love and we really care about. And I think we're both really competitive.
Yeah.
And really, really both love television. And I'd been in movies for years, but I've been secretly watching television when nobody was looking. And then I would tell my friends to go and actually watch movies and tell me what they were about, so that I went into a meeting, I wouldn't look like a liar. And also because, like you said, at that point, honestly, TV was considered like pro wrestling.
We came out,
You didn't talk about it. It was what people did.
It was a secret.
Yeah, but it wasn't like movies.
Grey's came out at the end of the season after Desperate Housewives and Lost came out, and those shows sort of changed their trajectory of how people were watching television.
Yeah.
Speaking of Grey's, Mr. Pickens and I were, by the way, James Pickens Jr. One of the 3 original cast members, still on Grey's, and you've beat alcoholism. You were electrocuted. They can't kill you.
Let's not forget the aneurysm.
That's right. That's right.
You had an aneurysm. I totally forgot about that.
What was it like then, James, versus what it's like now, or has it changed a whole lot for you?
For me personally, I can get a nice table at a restaurant now. But I mean, artistically, as an actor, this was lightning in a bottle for me. I'd been a journeyman actor for a long time, applied my trade here in New York, and had done quite a few series over the years. I mean, some would stick, some wouldn't, but this one here was something different. And to watch how it evolved, to watch how my character has evolved, it's been pretty humbling. And to have a character who's been written the way he's been written, where I am in my career, my age and everything, I've been extremely lucky, and I can only attribute that to Shonda and Betsy and what they've done, and making this character fully realized and humble. And we watched him at his lowest points, we watched him at his high points, and we wanted to take that journey with him. And I wanted to take that journey with him and see how it comes out, and I haven't been disappointed, I can say that.
Did you know in that first season, or maybe even that second season, did you know that you were part of a show that would be on the air for more than 2 decades?
To dovetail off of what Shonda was saying, we had a producer on the show, Jim Perriott, and they had a dinner for us. This is actually before the pilot aired. It aired on a Sunday.
Yep.
And we were sitting around and having dinner and cocktails and the whole bit. And Jim came over to me, and I'll never forget, it was very prophetic. He said, "Jim," he said, "you watch." He said, "when this show airs, it's gonna knock the ball out of the park." And I said, "How do you know that?" He said, I just have a feeling. I haven't seen a show like this." And sure enough, the thing went out the ballpark. I was glad to have another job, to be honest with you. I had just come off a show, and when I got the word from my manager to go in on this thing, I was just hoping I could, maybe I can get, 100 episodes, I'll be good, But yeah, that's turned into 22 seasons, so it's been pretty amazing.
So then Scandal comes along in 2012.
Yes.
Kerry Washington becomes the first black female in a lead role since the mid-'70s, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, it was like 30-something years?
38 years or something.
Yeah.
What inspired that?
We met this amazing woman. Betsy goes out and finds these amazing people and then brings them to talk to me in hopes that I get excited about them. But she met this amazing woman named Judy Smith, and Judy Smith was the White House fixer for the Bush administration, the first Bush administration. And Judy came and talked, and I was busy, and I remember thinking like, okay, I'll give this woman like 30 minutes. I don't have a lot of time here. And we ended up talking for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes into the conversation, I was like, I already see 100 episodes of television. Like, you could feel it.
Wow.
It's true. And she was really like, I'm really too busy. Maybe somebody else could do this. I'm really too busy. And I remember like 5 minutes in, you looked at me, and basically your eyes were just like. And I was like, I knew it. I just like knew it. But you did. You got it immediately.
Yeah, and it was a big deal. I don't think it was a big deal because I was so excited about something, and it was the first time it was something outside of us that came in that excited me versus just something I'd made up. And so that was big, and that was very different. And then I remember, like, at this point we'd had this clout, with the network because we'd made Grey's Anatomy, and they were pleased with us. And I remember going in and saying, like, I want to make this show, and everybody was like, okay, but nobody seemed as excited about it as we did.
No.
And then when the show got picked up, I remember getting a call, and they were like, this show would be amazing for Connie Britton. And I was like, that's awesome, because I love her, but Olivia Pope is black. And you could have heard a pin drop. Because I don't think that they were thinking that at all, in any way, shape, or form. They read the script, and they just saw something very different than what I had put on the page.
Oh, and it was like...
in their interpretation.
You could hear a pin drop, and then the phone drop, and you could hear heels running down the hall.
We used to joke about that.
We always used to joke.
That somebody would be going, she's black.
She's black.
But to their credit, ABC was very supportive. They were wildly supportive once that was worked out.
Yeah. And they were actually, they were totally for, and they were really incredibly pro.
They were supportive. They were great. Yeah, and they loved Kerry. And we got to build this amazing cast again, because that was what was so great, was we got to build this amazing cast with Grey's. We got to build this amazing cast with Private Practice. And then we got to do it again. Like, it was so much fun.
It was amazing.
Because at a certain point you think, like, we already have all the great actors, like, we're good. And then we meet all these new people and they embody these characters in ways we never imagined.
Conrad, I've got to get to you because I know, again, you've got, 16 other jobs here.
7:30 curtain.
Okay.
But it's
Bro, are
only
you serious?
It's only 5 blocks from here.
Yeah.
They're letting me be late. Yeah.
You don't have the running shoes on, though.
I've got them in my bag. Yeah, my New Balance are in my bag.
Okay, good.
By the way, only a Tony nominee could pull off shoes.
Those
like
shoes
that.
are amazing.
Let's talk about Oliver. Let's talk about How to Get Away with Murder. Because is it true you were only initially supposed to be in a few episodes?
Yeah, just in the pilot, the first episode, and then I guess it worked.
I was on set.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
And it was your first TV role.
Yeah.
How nervous were you?
I feel like this is something I've learned. The shooting of a TV show, I don't feel nervous on set. It's when it's getting released that I'm like, and especially if you saw the pilot and we went downtown in the pilot, I was like, oh God, my family's gonna see that. And I for some reason didn't make that connection when we were shooting it. And so that was the more nerve-wracking experience. And then the amount of eyes that are just on you all of a sudden after it's a really tough thing to get used to, but yeah, it's a blessing.
Later in the first season, your character learns he's HIV positive, and all of a sudden, I would imagine people start coming up to you in the streets to talk about that part of your character?
Yes. All of the representation, the HIV diagnosis, just the fact that we were showing 6 years of a gay couple that had sex. I grew up in the 90s in the South, and there was nothing and I'm a little gay boy, and there was nothing for me to feel like I belonged, and to be able to, and then there was Will and Grace, but Will and Grace didn't have sex. We were just saying, it's like just smooth parts down there, and which was great. Which is like I get, it's like things have to incrementally move, but it wasn't until I feel like How to Get Away with Murder came along that we were able to show a gay queer relationship, and they had sex, and it's like that's a big part of being a gay man is having the sex.
And then the wedding, of course, where you sang.
Yeah, I know. And that was a crazy, when Pete was like, well, do you have any ideas? And I was like, well, I love John Legend and I love the song All of Me. And of course, Pete was like, I think Shonda's friends with him. and so they worked it out, and then I got to sing that song in the wedding.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations on the Tony nomination.
Get back to your other job.
Let's talk about Scandal for a little bit here.
All right.
And your experience and how you came to be involved in the project. Your origin story.
It's a long one. It went in fits and starts. I was.
It's good.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
So I was shooting Grey's Anatomy, and I got a knock on my trailer door, and there was a production assistant who said, Shonda Rhimes wants to see you in her office. And I was like, fuck, I'm fired. And I went up there, and Shonda was sitting behind her desk, and she said, you said this exactly. You said, I wrote a script. ABC thinks it's pretty good, and I want you to do it.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
That was it. And I thought, no, I don't think I thought. I said, okay.
You did.
I said, okay. And she said, do you want to go read it? And I said, right, yes, I should go. So I took it back to my trailer. I read it. I loved it. The role the whole thing was great, but the role the role you wrote for me was great.
She did.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Look at that.
I did not know that.
I know, she did.
You were the first choice.
I did not know that.
Until now?
Until
Wait
now.
for it. Wait for it.
Until now.
Wait for it, though.
And so she said, I'd like you to do it. And I said, great. And it was pilot season, so I called my agent. I was like, guess what? And they were like, great, we don't have to do any work this year. You already got a job. And a couple weeks later, Shonda calls and she says, "This is so strange, and I apologize, but there was a new president of ABC."
Yeah.
The
Paulie.
Yeah, the regime. Paulie. I miss him. Very nice British chap, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And she said, you know, it's a new guy. He wants to sort of put a stamp on things. Would you be opposed to reading for the role? And I said, of course not. I'm an actor. I have no problem auditioning. I mean, I thought the job was already mine, but...
It was.
So I went in, and Shonda was there. I think you were there.
I was there.
Linda Lowy, our lovely casting director, was there. Maybe someone from ABC. They put me on tape. I read. Shonda said it went great. I walked away, called my agent. I was like, don't worry, we got it. A week later, Shonda called me again and said, you know, they're not sure. We'd like to have you come back in and read again. I was like, oh God, all right.
It was awful. It was
I'll go
awful.
back. I read again, and it went great, and everyone, you know, sort of fist bumped me as I was walking out the door. And then she called a week later, and she said, I'm so sorry, but they don't want you. And I was like, what do you mean?
Well, how could they not want you?
No, please. I was like, oh man, now I got to go find a job. And so I was not a part of Scandal. They went and they cast it, and someone else got that role, a very talented actor, got that role. They cast Carrie, they cast Tony, it was great, and I was like, I'm not watching that show.
But season 2.
But I did another show, and literally the day they announced the cancellation of the other show I was doing, Shonda called me, and she said, I want you to come on Scandal. And I was like, they kind of don't want me. She was like, I don't care. I don't care. I've got something for you. It's better than the original role. It's going to be great. So we worked out a deal where I came on as I recurred in the second season and then was a series regular in the third. And I got to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful family. And I tell you, things just work out the way they're supposed to. And had I played that original character, I can almost with 100% clarity say that this show would have been different. It would not have been as good. And Henry Ian Cusack got that role, and he did a fantastic job. And Jake was the role that I was supposed to encompass.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never.
Yeah.
And Bellamy, I mean, you sort of have a similar story. I mean, you had this recurring role that turned into a drunken first lady who becomes president.
I like
Smelly
to carry a theme through. Yeah, no, the pilot was already shooting. I didn't get to see the script. It was then called Damage Control.
Oh,
so
that's
it was all
right.
very mysterious, and it was this thing everybody wanted to get that season. And I was just like changing clothes in the back of the car and trying to do my auditions. And sweet Linda Lowy, who has transformed so many of our lives, had just called me in for everything. And I'd done a private practice. I'd done the spin-off, the baby private practice that was inside the Grey's Anatomy.
Yes.
Yeah, and Linda called like 5 of us the day before the part of Mellie worked. There were 2 lines to audition with. One of the lines was, live.
That was really good.
Thank you, obviously.
That's very good. Very good.
And I just got...
I see why they expanded the role now. So
Right
I
there.
just got so lucky because it could have been any of the 5 of us, and luck of the draw. And I showed up the next day, and we pretended it was Air Force One, and we tromped around Griffith Park, and you know, it was so much fun. And we read when we got picked up. She went around the table after the reading for the second episode and told everybody what they were going to do for the season. And I had dressed up. I'm so Southern, so I had like a little dress on and makeup done. I'm like, what am I going to do this season? And she said, I think you're going to be here 3 episodes. And I was like, and then somehow, so swiftly there is God, to quote Tennessee Williams, they just let me hang around. So.
And then by season 6, you're president.
Thank you. Yes, well, yeah. I mean, that's all Mellie. I didn't have much to do with that. Mellie was like, I will be president.
How do you guys, when you're working together, the 2 of you, stories like that, how do you decide when you're watching something in real time, you know what? We should expand this role. Or maybe in some cases, maybe we should scale this back. More of this, less of this.
One of the things I love that I really loved about making network television was you could write a script, they would shoot it, I could see what an actor had done, and then build story on their performance. For me, it was like the ultimate collaboration, because I was never going to tell you, I was always say, you have to say every word exactly as it's written, but I'm never going to tell you how to say those words.
That's right.
And so the actors would go away with these scripts and they would do amazing things, and I would learn things about them. And I would suddenly discover new things about the characters and what they could do. And that was really the case with Bellamy. It really was, because I was watching her and I thought, like, I was thinking 3 episodes, and then you said something or did something, and I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, like, she's got a whole world in there. And it became really interesting to me, and I kind of became obsessed with what it must be like to be the wife of this man who was doing all this stuff.
Thank heaven.
It was that line of live.
It was, probably was.
That's what it was.
I was
Live.
on set. It was chilling. It was just chilling.
But sometimes you just know. I mean, Jim, do you remember you came in and back then, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
you walked into a room in front of the network executives and you auditioned for them, like in person.
Yeah.
And Jim came in and we'd never met.
No.
No.
He
Never
walked
met.
in, he did the whole like chief part, that whole speech that you see at the
very
beginning of
beginning.
Grey's Anatomy. And he walked out of the room and he literally, the door shut
Yep.
and the head of the network said him. And we were all like, yes. Like there was no choice. And so we brought you back in.
Brought me back in.
We brought you back in to tell you in person right then and there.
Yeah.
Right after the
Yeah.
audition?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my
Peter,
God.
I know.
Yeah. Because there was nobody else after that.
No, literally, Peter Horton, who was exec producer at the time, was in the room with Shonda and Betsy and everybody. And yeah, I came back in and I sat down and he said, well, Jim, what are you doing for the next 5 years? And that's how,
Wow.
yeah, right. Yeah.
We got to talk about the Code Black episode.
Code Black.
What was that, 2000?
2006.
Super Bowl.
It was after the Super Bowl.
Double episode.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, wow.
2000, yeah.
When you were filming that, did you know that was going to be what it became?
No. We knew it was something different and special. They had assembled an amazing cast, especially the guest stars on there, and they were just unbelievable. But it was the impact of all of the machinations that came together in that particular episode. The unknown factor. I brought on a wonderful actor, Kyle
Chandler.
Yeah, Kyle, who I'd worked with, we'd done a series called The Lion's Den. And so they brought him on, he was amazing. But just all the elements, great TV, everything has to kind of come together. And it fit really together. And I remember some friends of mine who had watched that episode, and there was one particular episode where I'm walking up the stairs to the catwalk there, and Bailey comes behind me, and she says, Chief, and I just turn around and kind of look at her because I kind of know what's coming. And I had my friend said, when you made that turn, we knew this, excuse my language, she said, oh shit, something getting ready to fall out right now. And it was, when we watched it, what was it, almost 40 million people, I think, watched that particular, it was huge moment of television. And once again, I'll keep repeating over and over, it's a testament to that woman right there and what they did and how to tell a story. And they really told a story on that one.
When ABC picks up How to Get Away with Murder, I think it was 2014, it becomes TGIT. Not a ripoff of TGIF, but TGIT. And you have all 3 primetime hours on ABC for 5 seasons?
I don't even remember how long. It felt like forever.
It's all a blur.
Yeah.
That had to be exhausting.
You know what? I don't know if it was exhausting as much as there was something about like the click over when Viola joined and we knew that we had the whole night that went from being, because I'd been doing 3 shows at once. I'd been doing Private and Grey's and Scandal, before. But now to have like Private had gone into the sunset and we had this other show and it felt like it was big. Pete Nowak wrote that show and Betsy was doing the producing and all that stuff, and I was sort of showing up every now and then, I will say that. But it felt big. And so when they said they were giving us the whole night, I remember thinking, like, sort of for the first time, like, oh, they're really depending on us. Like thinking that we had a role that we needed to step into because they were giving us this thing. And we earned it, but it felt like, it was that feeling of like we have a big responsibility.
And I was like a scheduling geek from a little kid up. Like I memorized the fall preview issue of TV Guide.
Wow.
Yeah, you want to know the Saturday night lineup? I don't know, like 1970? I'll talk to you later. But so what it meant to me was gigantic because I knew what it meant because I tracked when different creators had, like Norman Lear had shows, and and the idea that the two of us had been working on these things, and for Pete too, that we'd been working on these things, and all of a sudden we had our own night of television was mind-boggling to me, and I got incredibly excited, and I bought TV Guide just to celebrate.
That's actually a nice segue into the second part of this, because in 2017 something big happens. You become the first huge name to leave the dinosaur of linear television for this thing called Netflix, and you signed this exclusive deal with Netflix. Did you know then that it was going to turn out as well as it turned out, or was it sort of this, I'm just stepping out on faith?
I think what we knew, what I felt really strongly about, was that we had learned everything we could learn in network television. Like in the beginning, in Grey's Anatomy, like in the beginning years when we were first learning it, a problem would happen. And it would take Betsy and I like 2 months to figure out how to solve it. We would work on it, wouldn't leave the office. And then like the year that we left, I remember feeling like a problem would happen. And that same problem we could solve in like 2 seconds.
What was different?
We just had all of this knowledge and experience now. So it felt like maybe we weren't learning as much anymore. And I think for us, being competitive people, we love to keep learning and we love to keep being involved. So there was that element of wanting a new challenge. But it was also, I was watching what was happening with streaming TV. I mean, I made TV, I was a TV watcher. So for me, it felt like, they were making The Crown and the budgets were insane. And you'd watch those things and think like, that's so gorgeous. Like, I want to be able to do that. And I was, admittedly exhausted. We were making 72 hours of television a year.
72 hours of television and developing. On the average season, we had 3 shows on the air, and I would be developing up to 6 pilots.
Yeah.
And then maybe shooting 2 with you.
So we were exhausted.
We were exhausted.
And we were excited by the concept that you could make 8 episodes of something. At the time that seemed so romantic and strange because we'd just been working nonstop, like the runaway trains that TV is. And to get to do that was really interesting. And we were excited by what Netflix was doing. It felt fresh and new.
Bridgerton.
I'm sorry, what?
What? Yeah.
We've talked about this a little bit, but how was that born? Just the concept in general. Where did that come from? I feel like there's a good story there.
Okay, so this is from my perspective, and then you can fill in your perspective. But so I think I was home, and Shonda called me and said, I just read this book. It's amazing. I was sick in a hotel room, and I found this book, and I read it, and it's amazing. And
I was really sick, but the book was so good that I got up out of the bed and went to the bookstore to buy the next book.
Wow.
So as soon as you read the book, you knew this was...
I did.
You did. You fell in love with the book, and I said, "What's the book?" And she said, "It's a romance novel. It's called Bridgerton." And I said, "Do you still have a fever? Are you still actively sick? Because what are you talking about?" And she was like, No, I swear, so read the book. I was like, okay. And she was right. I know that's rare, but she was right. She's always right. And we were like fully entranced, and there was so much about it that felt like stories that we wanted to tell.
It also had this element of, I mean, it was a romance novel. So to me, romance novels had meant a certain kind of book that wasn't something I was going to read. And to read this and realize, like, I was like, I can see it's set in Regency, England. It's a bunch of sad white ladies trying to get married. But really what it was I could see myself in these characters. And I felt like if I can see myself in these characters, other people will be able to see themselves in these characters. And it felt like, we like to do workplace shows. So, we got Grey's, our medical show. We got Murder, which was, our legal show. We had Scandal, which was our Washington Fixer show. This felt like, their workplace is the marriage mart. These are women who are going to work, and their work is getting married. And I could see it. I just got excited by it.
And I was really excited about the fact that the Bridgertons had so many children, because that meant a lot of seasons of shows.
8 books.
Which I did the math, and I just kept counting, and there were just hundreds of Bridgertons. So we thought, between that and the fact that the stories honestly were terrific, and it was such a great way to comment on current day through the lens of a different time where you can kind of relax into it, but also there were enough things about the way we decided to tell the stories that let people actually relate to them without even really knowing.
The most recent Shondaland project I watched was The Residents.
Yeah.
I told you backstage was fantastic. I actually thought for like half the first episode, I was like, wow, they let them shoot at the White House. I knew Shonda had juice, but wow, this is really... But no, it was built to scale. It's truly impressive from a visual standpoint. It was also, correct me if I'm wrong, this was like sort of the first comedy that you put on television.
I think there's always been comedy in the shows.
I was going to say, like, Grey's was very funny in the beginning.
Yeah.
We got a little bit more serious, but then we got funny again. So, but it really was our first, like, this is an all-out
hard comedy.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, and plus being a wonderful murder mystery, and it's created by Paul William Davies, who's, clearly a genius, and it was so much.
He was
fun.
a scandal writer.
He was a scandal writer, and we were. For about a year, we talked about mysteries because we were both obsessed with mysteries, and I'd force him to read a bunch of like obscure Swedish detective stories, and then he'd send me something. And he was sort of thinking about that, and Shonda, a while ago, had found this book that
The Residents, which was just about the White House residence staff.
And it was, essentially like having interviews with all these staffs over all the years and these incredible anecdotes, and we wanted to find somebody who could adapt it. And we sort of said, maybe we'll give it to Paul and see what he thinks. And Paul, as Paul does, read it, and he thought, I'm gonna have to call them and say, I don't quite see this. And then one night, as Paul might do, he was watching television and he found the Whitewater hearings, which were the Clinton administration.
Sure, the land deal.
Yeah, they thought that they found, or that there might have been documents in the residence. So the whole staff of the residence was being called on the stand, and he looked at this and he thought, wait a second, what if there was a murder in the White House and all of these people unfortunately were called in front of a congressional committee?
Really smart.
And that's where it started. And I
really
totally give him credit for that because who the heck comes up
No
with
one.
that, right?
And then we got Uzo Aduba, who's incredible. And that was really exciting.
And by the way, Al Franken playing a senator in a congressional hearing. And when he first walked on set, I walked up and I said, isn't this fucking weird? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
It was the best kind of weird, though.
Oh, it was really cool.
You just said something that triggered a thought. In terms of storytelling, and you've all sort of alluded to why it works, why different shows have worked, because they are such great stories, great characters. What makes a story worthy of a Shondaland production?
That's a good question.
It's really basic. It's super basic.
Yeah.
Super basic.
We only make shows that the two of us want to watch.
That's it.
And we both have to want to watch it.
That's it.
That's
Really?
it.
Yes.
That's the
If we've never
secret
seen it,
sauce?
if we've never seen it
The
before,
magic secret is the two of us we both have to agree, and 9 times out of 10, if we both agree, it works.
It works, yeah. We have to be excited about it. We have to want to watch it, and it has to have not been done before.
You seem skeptical.
Do you guys watch the same television on your off time?
No.
Fuck, that's weird.
That is weird.
No, we don't. But what we will do is if she actually finds something she loves, she'll say, oh, you really, really should watch this. And then we'll have like a conversation. Or if I find something I loathe, I'll go, can you watch this? Because everybody really likes it. And I think it sucks.
And do you disagree on like, oh, I love this, so I don't like that, this is why?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, we do.
So when we do agree,
Yeah.
it feels important.
It passed a taste test of some sort. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And it
That
is
is
really,
literally
really
the
important.
secret sauce.
Like, I think one of the things people don't understand is that we don't want to do the same thing twice. I mean, look at Private Practice. We wanted to tell the story of people who are slightly older going through life decisions that were different than the interns on Grey's. And that was what was appealing to us. And every single show that we've done has either taken a story in a different theme and put it in a different genre, or it's just something about it which is intriguing and different and new and that we felt like we hadn't seen.
Is there a show? I'm going to take your job. I'm so fascinated.
Go ahead, Scott.
Is there a show that you have done that maybe didn't get the opportunity to, I don't know, explore the world as much, that got canceled, or that you'd think about doing again? And the reason I ask is because I loved Off the Map.
We loved Off the
I
Map.
would love
I was
to
just
see it again.
Yeah.
Are you angling for a job? I think that's what's happening.
I just want to watch it because I think it's a fascinating.
It was
Doctors Without Borders has been a show that people have been trying to do forever,
Right.
And it was
it's never worked.
It was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing with that was it was really ahead of its time.
It was a really good show. Jenna Bans
Yeah.
created that show,
Yeah.
and she was also
Scandal.
Grey's writer and a Scandal writer, and so it was a great show.
I think also one of the pilots that we first worked on that didn't go to pilot,
Inside the Box.
I mean, go to series, was this show called Inside the Box. It was by Richard Robbins. It was about journalists in Washington. We love journalists.
Obviously, like-
saw inventing it.
Thank you.
We went back to Washington.
We love journalists.
I'm gonna ask you. Thank you. I'm gonna ask each of you, each of the three actors on stage, the same question, and then there are a couple of audience questions as well. Favorite line of dialogue from in no particular order.
Today is a great day to save lives.
I can't remember it. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I will just say magical thighs. But I did. I just watched. My sweet husband had never seen Private Practice, and we saw an episode that I was on, and I get to say, "I like sex. I want to have sex." And he was like,
I don't remember a line. I don't.
And that's why it took season 2 for you to become a part.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Touche. There was something about I forget what it was when Jake killed James.
"Oh,
But I don't remember the line.
I'm going to sit with you, and I'm not going to leave you alone. Right?
Yeah, it's something like that.
I'm going to sit with you. I'm not going to leave you alone. It was the way you delivered it. It was
Do you remember all of the lines from your show?
not all of them.
Ask Shonda what her favorite line
What
is.
is your? Do you have a favorite line? It's like picking a favorite child here.
Oh,
though,
yes,
right?
just about
Yeah.
Right?
I think there might be a favorite line from every show. Maybe.
Give us a few of them.
A quiet board bodes bad news.
Yep.
Do you remember? That was from the bomb episode.
Yes.
From Scandal, there's so many, but I think from Scandal it really has to be the line when Papa Pope shows up and says, "You have to be what?" And she says twice as, and he says, "You have to be what?" And she says twice as good. That probably one of my favorites.
Yes.
Probably because you heard it growing up too.
We all heard it growing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, these are a couple questions from the audience that have been properly screened, so they're not crazy. For Scott, James, and Bellamy, if you could pitch a Shondaland series where you star and Shonda and Betsy produce, what would it be about? Here's your shot, Scott.
I deserved that. I will tell you.
oh, good.
Thanks. I want to do like a modern day Robin Hood,
Oh, you're so cute in tights."
where you, I I wasn't going to wear tights, but maybe now. No, I think I think it's sort of timely with the oligarchs and the billionaires and all this, and sort of taking it back. And I think it's an interesting concept. I'll send you the story.
I like
area.
it.
There's a deck coming.
Yeah.
Right.
I want space. I want sci-fi. I want some smart scientist lady, and she might just be done with Earth, or maybe Earth is done with itself. But like, she goes to find something else. You gotta find all the people, right? You gotta have all the people that are gonna be good at the different things when you go to the different place. But then you also need good genes. So there'll be like space elevators to kiss in, and like politics on the spaceship, and I'm having trouble with this chair. Yeah, that's me. I want space.
Okay. I'm not sure that's going to happen. But
I like
maybe
it.
Paradise.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Wait, by the way, you guys haven't done sci-fi yet, have
No,
you?
we love sci-fi.
Come on.
Love it.
James?
Jim can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Correct.
As a child of the theater, I've always been intrigued by the stories that theater tells. One story in particular, Driving Miss Daisy. But to set it in current times, a day during the 1994 Los Angeles riots.
Ooh.
And we watch a man pick a woman up, and he navigates through this labyrinth of chaos and fear and angst, and how they find some kind of commonality within that. And then you got about 8 good episodes right there.
I see
can
why
sell
they
that.
hired him.
That story, yeah. But that story is trademarked by Jim. He said it here in front of all of you, so nobody steals it.
Yeah. Jim.
I mean, it sounds like you've written a treatment already.
Right?
It's coming.
I mean, that does beg the question, and you've done so much. What's left? I mean, oh, look at this. They're like, what's not left? I've got. Like, what if right now, if someone came to you, if Netflix, if they said, you know what, you're a proven winner, whatever you want to do, go do that next. Whatever it is.
I mean, I always think like we're never done, so it's always weird
That's
to think,
right,
you know, when somebody says to me like, is there any more to do? We don't look at it that way. Like what we did before was what we did before, so really what's next? But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if we knew, we'd be doing it. You know,
We're in a lovely position where they are very supportive of our ideas and things, and so it means that we're very careful. Because when you can do anything, you should not do anything, you know?
I think that's absolutely true. And it's also, I think, the thing primarily is we love what we do, and we were just talking about this yesterday, is we just love to keep going. And we just love the fact that we do have the opportunity to keep telling stories, and that there's so many things that we haven't done that, I don't know, it's impossible to answer. You just kind of stay hopeful that the next thing that pops up is something that we both fall in love with, so we can make it.
Ah, that was well said.
I think we've got a few more minutes, and there are just 2 more audience questions. This is a good one here. Of all of your character deaths on the shows, which one's been the toughest?
Oh, wow.
Which character have you?
Denny.
The crowd is like, oh, me too.
hard one, yeah.
Why'd you kill Denny? Why Denny?
Well, I mean, he was written that way, so he was written to die. Like, we literally had a board in the writer's room that said at the beginning, dying young man arrives. And then at the end of the season, it said, dying young man dies young. That was the plan for his character. And then Jeffrey Dean Morgan came in and was so delightful.
Yeah.
And we kept enjoying to write for him. And then it came time for him to die. And like, I was crying, like typing like it was bad because I loved the character so much and I'd enjoyed it so much. It was also the first
It was our first
big death that we'd done. I mean, there were plenty. There, like some of them, like I go back and look and I realize, like, oh my God. But that was one. James's was one
Yeah.
on Scandal, because that was another beloved character. They're hard when they happen.
I mean, they don't have to happen, Shonda.
They do. They do.
I mean, you could keep them alive.
We brought Denny back
Yes.
with the bomb dude, aka Kylie Chandler, and Doc the dog in an episode about coming from the afterlife. So I just
I
wanted
missed
to
him
say
so
that.
much.
Is there a character for you, Betsy, that stands out?
You know, it'd have to be Denny, but I also had a special spot for Doc the dog. Honestly, everybody went in that episode. It was a bloodbath.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan used to say that the dog's death took 5 times longer than his on camera, and he was right.
He is right. I'm just, yeah.
Everyone loves dogs. Scott, is there one for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I played a character named Henry, and he died.
He was wonderful.
That was moving, right?
very moving.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was well written and produced.
Yeah, you weren't really kind of dead.
The hardest one for me though was James, because I was the one who pulled the trigger and ended it, and Dan was Dan. Thanks. Dan was a beloved member of our cast, and anytime that someone is out of a job, you feel bad, and you know we missed him. He's
He
the
got an
best.
Emmy. He got an Emmy.
He did all right. Yeah.
Betsy was like, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not
Also,
gonna feel
I
so
will say
crappy.
at the table read before the episode where you did what you did, that episode ends with a bang, and everybody turned to look to Shonda like, because it was either going to be, it was Josh Malina or Dan Bukatinsky, and we were all like, who is it? And she was like, I don't know yet. And so they were on
my
like
God, they were freaking out.
tenterhooks for 10 days, and then
That was because Josh Malina was such a prankster.
I know he
You have
was.
to get him.
Yeah.
James, over the 20 years that you've been on the show, I mean, I would assume there have been a couple of times where you've probably thought, especially the aneurysm, were there a couple of times where you thought, this might be it for me?
I go home and say, honey, what you want to do? No, you know what? I knew it was within the course of the story, which is what I loved about that character and how they wrote him. That, I'd say, oh, okay, he's got an aneurysm. Let's see how they write me out, get through this one. Oh, he's electrocuted. Now that's new. That's new, okay. I think the only time I kind of really thought about it was when they had all my wives dying. I said, I'm killing wives left and right. But I can't really say I ever felt really, oh, is this the end of it?
That's because in the pilot, Jim and I talked, and I said, you're going to close the hospital.
Yeah.
Like when the hospital closes, like you're going to be there until the hospital closes.
Spoiler alert.
oh, good.
Spoiler alert,
That's
but
another
true.
20 years down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this. Thank you.
But before we wrap up really quickly here, I mean, just in terms of, and I know you hate these kinds of questions, but that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm going to ask. Legacy. Years from now, years from now, when people are looking back on the body of work that the two of you have created together, what do you want folks to take away from it?
I'd rather they be remembering the stories instead of remembering us. Truly. Like, I feel like that's where we're making our mark in the stories that we tell. And I hope those stories affect people enough that that's what they remember.
Yeah, I think that's good.
She'll take it.
This is why when your partner's a writer, you just go, hey, yeah. I think that sounds good. No, I think the stories, and that I always sort of feel like you keep pushing and you keep trying and you are passionate about something, and you can get it done.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a great partner.
Yeah.
But I also want to toot our horn just for a little bit. I'm going to toot our own horn just for a little bit.
Do it.
Because Betsy and I are the female partners, the longest running female partners in television history. Grey's Anatomy was like the most diverse show on television.
Yes,
It basically
it was.
changed the face of television, which is something we're really proud of. Olivia Pope was the first woman of color in 37 years. We did a lot of stuff that we think about it now, and like there weren't women like there were. You know, like these deeply competitive, fried chicken eating, angry women did not exist really on television before that, except in places like Cagney and Lacey. There wasn't really anything like that.
No, it's true. And
So we made a lot of, I'm tooting my own horn, but the reason I'm doing it is because like I'm sort of realizing as we're talking, like we made a lot of change. And that's exciting. I hope people remember that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
such a part of this country's fabric for the last 20 years. Cheers to 20 more.
Woo!
Thanks, Chris.